Wendy. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're at. I'm really looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to this webinar because I think it's an important topic. I've talked about it at some conferences, and I've gone through this for maybe a year and a half. And I want to first start with this notion of prescriptiveness. It's a real key. But before we even do that, I want to talk about coaching and have a broad definition of it. So when I say coach in this sense for this webinar, for this workshop, I'm implying that you could be in one of these roles. You could be a Scrum Master. You could be an Agile coach, a formal coach. You could be a manager or a team leader who's coaching in an Agile context. You could be a senior leader. You could even be a project manager. From my point of view, I'm focusing on virtually anyone who's guiding, who's in a role where they're helping to guide an Agile transformation, an Agile adoption effort, and you're providing counsel to people, you're providing guidance to people. You're partnering with them along this journey because Agile is such a change to most folks. It's a significant change, and it's a challenge to navigate it from whatever methodology an organization's been using to Agile. That I think coaching is incredibly important, and it's not just for the coaches. So leaders can have a coaching stance, if you will. Not only can, but probably should have a coaching stance. So that's a little bit of the definition context. Let's talk about prescriptive. It's making or giving directions, rules, or injunctions. It's sanctioned by longstanding usage or custom, and it can be derived from legal prescription, meaning we have a prescriptive title. What I'm trying to get at in this talk is to look at too soft and then too prescriptive. And in the talk, we're trying to get the just right. So somewhere in the middle, and we'll explore it in a little bit more detail. So one side, let's look at what does too prescriptive look like. This is the drill sergeant. The picture there denotes a drill sergeant, and I fortunately had the opportunity to experience drill sergeants when I was in the Army, and I went through boot camp, and I think I might be scarred by this gentleman. I think I remember him, and he would get in my face. So, and again, none of you. I'm not accusing anyone who's listening of being too prescriptive. I'm just explaining the continuum that we're going to use for discussion purposes. So it's excessively telling. Really, somewhat closed-minded. It's my way. There's one way to do things. It's sort of my way or the highway. It's very tactically. Often, prescriptiveness is very tactically focused, not strategic. Maybe disaster prevention. It requires micromanagement. If you've ever heard that term or experienced micromanagement, lots of scrutiny would be part of it. Your actions are scrutinized. You're getting fast feedback and continuous feedback. So one side of the coaching continuum is being too prescriptive, or being prescriptive, but you can exaggerate it. The next side of the coaching continuum is it can be too soft. I remember years ago I was attending a project management conference, and there was a man teaching a session, and he was talking about, I think the title of his topic was, the number one problem for project managers is that they're too soft. And he was trying to talk about techniques to bring more backbone, to more sort of courage into the project manager, more telling. Now, I don't know what project managers he was talking about. I mean, the ones I've experienced definitely were not too soft, but I could see where he was coming from, that there's a pattern where project managers might not be firm enough. And I could see the same pattern in Agile coaches, where they never tell. So they would never tell the team what to do. There's a myriad of ways of doing things. They're very comfortable with advanced teams. So advanced Agile teams, being too soft works well because the teams have tremendous experience. But what if they're an inexperienced team? So context matters. Very often the position is let's see, or discovering. That's work together to discover where we're going, rather than that's plan a course, and it's fail friendly or learning friendly. Again, you can almost lean towards. That's why I have the Dalai Lama there. You can lead. You can lean a little bit too strongly in that direction. For purposes of this talk, we want to sort of get to we want to get to just right. We want to explore what's the middle look like, because I think that's where the success is. And I've seen coaches on both sides. In fact, it's a very common, at least in my experience, probably 80% of the Agile coaches that I experience fall into the too soft. So if I run into coaches, probably maybe 10% of the Agile coaches or colleagues that I run into are too prescriptive or lean more heavily towards prescriptiveness. And the vast majority of coaches lean towards too soft, that they're very uncomfortable with telling teams what to do or providing strong advice or strong guidance. And that's the sweet spot for this talk, is to try to convince those folks or encourage those folks to get slightly more prescriptive and see what happens. It's all about the results of your coaching. I thought I'd share this. Doc Norton has a blog, and he, I thought I'd explain like the prescriptive coach. So I'll just go through this dialogue real quickly. And this is a nice example of prescriptiveness from an Agile from an Agile coaching point of view, or from an Agile context point of view. And the coach says, "May I give you some feedback on your stand-ups?" And the client is, "Sure, that would be great." And the coach is, "I've noticed you don't address the three questions in your stand-ups. I think you'd find stand-ups to be of higher value if you did." And the client is like, "Oh, we tried that. It felt really disconnected. This way feels," whatever word they're using, "this way feels more like a team." And then the coach responds to that, "Well, I don't know if you've read this book on Scrum, but the stand-up serves a very specific and important purpose. It's important in order to maximize the benefit and not waste people's time that we cover what was done, what will be done, and any impediments. Let's tell the team we're improving the format and start with the three questions on Monday." Sound good, right? And that's the coach not only being prescriptive in nature, but coming back to like a very by rote approach to the daily stand-up. What the client is saying in this case is, we started there. We started with the three questions. What did I do yesterday? What do I plan on doing today? Is there anything in my way? That's a very traditional, very basic, way to conduct or facilitate the daily stand-up in Scrum. And the client is giving them feedback, giving the coach feedback that they tried it and they've evolved beyond it. And then the coach is coming back and basically saying, stop that I know better than you do, and I want you to do it this way. This is probably more prescriptive than I want to be on occasion. And when you do this, and we'll explore this a little bit along the session, maybe there are occasions, maybe there are situations where you want to actually tell the client. Like if this was a brand new team, well, then I could see maybe the coach having this level of prescriptiveness. But reading in between the lines, this is an evolutionary team. It seems like I'm reading in that they've moved beyond the basics. They've moved beyond sort of an entry-level team, and they're exploring they're finding their own way. And in that case, we want to be supportive and not neutralize that experimentation. But again, it's a good example of where we're going. I wanted to talk about Agile coaching. So context really matters, and we want to really be context aware. And I just thought I'd list some things here from a context point of view that we could go through. It's not intended to be an exhaustive list. It's just intended to be to give you a sense for the dynamics of context. So what steps have you? So part of the context in coaching is, I don't think a lot of coaches they view their coaching conversations as being singular events that have an open and a close, and they're not connected. And I actually think you should not look at it that way, that if you're interacting with a team, every interaction you've had before leading up to this interaction, you should consider in leading into this interaction. So what have you said before? So for example, if I'm coaching a team on daily